I mean, your interest and your whole journey has been just unbelievable. I think you're 150 years old, really, because I don't know how you cram everything in.
I
but
feel, I feel 150 years old.
but we're always, when we're doing these virtual podcasts or meetings or whatever it may be, we're always curious towards what people have behind them. And you look as though you have a wonderful room there, a super piano and a harp.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's my study actually, which is very comfortably appointed. But I keep the piano here. Also, the harp, which actually was my late partner's, who was a harpist among many other things. But I do like to strum out the odd chord on it. I'm very conscious that I'm speaking to a leading world performer in all these sorts of things. So forgive me. There's also
No.
there's an accordion there as well. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, wow. Yes. Oh, how
But that's
lovely.
been my lockdown project, has been to learn the accordion because I've always wanted to. And then a
Ah.
parishioner died and left me his accordion. And then so I've been having some lessons, and I'm just working on my first tango at the moment, I think.
So that will suit a kind of follow on from Strictly Come Dancing.
Well, I'm not sure. I think playing a tango will probably be a more successful enterprise than trying to dance a tango.
But when David was alive, did you perform together, even privately or otherwise?
Yeah, well, he was a fiddle player actually. So we used to play together quite a lot. Quite a lot of. We both liked Scottish traditional music very much, so there was a lot of that, and also um, we played all sorts of things. I remember one piece in particular, which is so much I associate with him, I can't really hear it now because it's too makes me too sad. Is the Arvo Pärt Spiegel am Spiegel, the piano violin
Oh,
piece.
it's absolutely beautiful.
It's also extremely technically undemanding, which is why we liked it so much. But to make
Well,
it sound nice is difficult.
it is, and it's one of those pieces, that can be adapted to so many instruments. I think the last time I experienced a version of that was for piano and double bass. And
Really,
the double bass was like a cello. Well, certainly in the respective player's hand. It was just so beautiful. But you say simplicity, but sometimes that's the most precious form of listening in a way, with that particular piece, which, as you say, on paper it looks so simple, and technically, yes, it is, but just to have that presence of mind just makes it so special a piece.
and also I think for a not very good musician like me, if I do manage to solve a technical problem, I'm so pleased with myself that I sort of feel for a second like a virtuoso. And then what I shouldn't be doing, what I should be doing, of course, is listening to the piece of music. And what I find with the Pärt piece is because it's not so technically demanding, it does oblige me to listen to what I'm playing more, and that's really when it gets interesting, isn't it? When you stop thinking about how you're making the sound, but what you're making the sound for.
Yes, that's true. And I mean, I'd just like to go back to your early years, really, because of course your uh, grandfather and father, they were in the shoe manufacturing business, am I right?
Yeah, well, it goes back further than that. Actually, one of my ancestors, my great grandfather, was one of the pioneers of. He invented the machines that mechanized shoe production,
Ah.
among other things. He also invented the bacon slicer. Um, and also a machine for making fireworks. He was a fascinating Victorian self-made man. But the enterprise that he started built the shoe factories that were so much part of the life in Northamptonshire for about 100 years, and my family were one of the families that profited from that.
That's interesting. And I mean, as a young boy, what were you listening to? I mean, was music in the home?
Uh, well, my first memory is of torture, which is both my parents were pretty much tone deaf. No, my father was tone deaf. My mother was sharp and was standing between them at carol services. And my father thought would go, ha, da, ha, will do. He just thought you did loud and rhythmic with singing. And my mother would be usually a quarter tone, sometimes a semitone out. And so it was this experience. I felt rather like Christ between the two robbers being crucified. Sorry, I shouldn't really say that, a blasphemous thought. But I think that's probably what gave me my curiosity about, well, if this isn't working, how do I make it work? And my grandfather was a pianist. He was a very flamboyant person, but he used to play and sing at the piano. I realise now, what I didn't realise, that they were probably very smutty and unsuitable songs, but he made people roar with laughter. And I thought, and I think for me, that my sort of love of music came quite early, but also my love of performing came quite early too, and the two came together perhaps.
That's really interesting, and I think that has obviously played a large part in your journey, that performance and connecting and building bridges, really, whether it's through the spoken word or through musical sound or otherwise, you know. But I think you've inherited an awful lot. I'm not saying that you're tone deaf by any means, but as far as the varied interests and so on. But
you know what, Evelyn? I think I had an aunt, a great aunt, who was a fiddle player. She played in I think it was the Royal Philharmonic, and she was a remarkable person. I think she played in the first performance of the Vaughan Williams Serenade to Music. She was running around London in the sort of 30s, 40s, and 50s. She was a very interesting woman. She went to university when it was very unusual for women to do that, and did a maths degree, but she actually was also a musician. And she had this glamorous life in London where she lived with another woman who was called, oh, sorry, it's an obligato from the dog. And the other woman was called Elspeth and was extremely fey. And Tootie, as we called her, was extremely butch and used to wear joggers and smoke a pipe, which sort of meant nothing to me much at the time. I realise now that she was living her life. Good for her. But she knew that she kind of saw in me someone who was curious and interested in music too. So she kind of fed me with music when she came up. And also she retired to near where I lived, and I used to go around there, and she used to let me drink and smoke. I was 13. and we'd listen to music, and she left me all her miniature scores when she died. She got in a terrible fight with a policeman, unfortunately. Oh, what's that? Is that you or me?
Oh, we have a food van. So maybe your dog heard the food van whilst it was a mile away or something. And
what I was a rambling anecdote, but what I was trying to say was that I think Tootie, as we called her, she seriously got me interested in music, and she gave me quite complicated music to listen to when I was very young. So she was giving me Britain to listen to when I was 5 or 6.
Wow.
And I lapped it up in the way you do before you know it's work. But my grandfather gave me I think the trouble is my ambition in music is not matched by my achievement, because my grandfather went for effect, if you see what I mean. So I became a loud pianist with enthusiastic use of the sostenuto pedal to cover a multitude of sins. So it kind of worked and didn't work for me.